What's happening, everybody? On today's show, some new names enter the portal like Georgia linebacker Jamon Dumas-Johnson, Texas quarterback Malik Murphy, and more. We have some new landing spots for guys who've been in the portal and some visiting news for some big names from the SEC already in the portal. Also have some recruiting tidbits as well. It is a loaded show today. Plenty to catch you up on. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase, and you can get that Game Time app. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers who are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Got plenty to jump into, so let's do it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
We start with one of the big names to enter the portal yesterday, Jamon Dumas-Johnson over at Georgia. Key player for them on the defense. Injury cut short his season this year, but he's now reportedly entering the transfer portal. According to Matt Zenitz of 24/7 Sports, Dumas-Johnson entering the portal. He was on the preseason watch list for the Bednarik Award. 70 tackles, 9 tackles for a loss, and 4 sacks as Georgia's second leading tackler a year ago on their national title winning team in 2022. He had 34 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 5.5 tackles for a loss this season before he got hurt in the win over Missouri, which cut his season short. But big-time playmaker in the SEC. And that is a guy who's going to be very highly sought after, you got to believe. So don't know why he would leave Georgia in the middle of this, ridiculously great run they've got going on. But maybe it's NIL, maybe it's, I don't know. Could be any number of things, but everybody's going to be calling his number. We'll see where he ends up. All right, some other news going on around the conference. Catching you guys up on some of the news that we kind of missed the last couple of days because we were talking SEC schedule and recruiting and all this, but came out a few days ago. Still was surprising nonetheless. Florida running back Trevor Etienne obviously entered the transfer portal, and some rumblings that Georgia is the favorite to land him. That's from On3 Sports. Of course, like we said, entered the portal about a week ago. We'll have 2 full seasons of eligibility remaining. Georgia's rushing attack this year was led by Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton, both seniors. So, look, there's an opportunity there in the Georgia running back room, and Trevor Etienne will be very welcome there. So we'll see if that's ultimately where he decides to land. Over at Arkansas, Rocket Sanders, we know, was in the transfer portal. I believe we talked about that a couple days ago on the show, but he's got a landing spot, and it is South Carolina. Rocket Sanders committing to South Carolina Gamecocks. Just had his best collegiate season a year ago in 2022, rushing for over 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. Struggled with injury this year, played in just 6 games, only had 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Now he's going to try to bounce back with the Gamecocks. Of course, he reunites with Dole Loggins, the OC over at South Carolina, was formerly at Arkansas, so a lot of familiarity there. The only thing I'll say for Rocket is they got to improve that offensive line at South Carolina. It was not great this year. Weren't able to run the football very well, and if they can improve that O-line, yeah, Rocket Sanders could be very productive over there at South Carolina for Shane Beamer's crew. Prior to the commitment from Rocket Sanders through the portal, they also picked up another running back. North Texas running back Oscar Attaway announced he's transferring to South Carolina. He's been at North Texas since 2019, had a medical red shirt, the COVID shortened season, so 6th year of college football coming up for him. In his time in North Texas, he has rushed for over 1,900 yards, averaging 5.5 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns, 21 catches as well. Over at Texas, yes, we're including Texas and Oklahoma now in our around the conference since they're coming in. Malik Murphy, their backup quarterback, opting to transfer out of Texas after 2 seasons in Austin. He started 2 games for Sark and crew this year against BYU and the overtime win against Kansas State. when Quinn Ewers was injured. But look, the reality is Arch Manning is there. And Arch Manning redshirted this year, got into a game or two. But Malik Murphy, with Quinn Ewers coming back next year, I think the understanding is Arch needs to be the backup. Arch doesn't want to sit third string next year on his second year in college. So Malik Murphy going to transfer somewhere else and highly sought after. There's been reports that a couple of SEC schools will be looking at him. Georgia was actually a team that popped up. Thought that was kind of interesting with Carson Beck already, expected to come back. But we'll see where Malik Murphy ends up. But talented quarterback, was a former 4-star QB in the class of 2022, was the number 12 quarterback in that class. Over at Vanderbilt, heard this news recently that their stud wide receiver Will Sheppard entered the transfer portal. On Thursday, he announced where he is headed. Will Sheppard is going to Colorado to go play for Deion Sanders and company. 4 seasons in the SEC at Vanderbilt, Will Sheppard caught passes for over 2,000 yards at 21 touchdowns. He ranks in the top 8 in Vanderbilt history in catches, yards, and touchdowns, including tied for 3rd in receiving touchdowns. This year, Sheppard caught 47 passes for almost 700 yards and 8 scores. 2022 was a second-team All-SEC selection. Really productive wide receiver. There was some rumblings. Maybe he might look at another SEC school, but he is headed to, what's Colorado going to be in? The Big 12 next year? So Will Sheppard heading up to Colorado to catch passes from Shedeur Sanders, presumably. All right, we'll get to more on the transfer portal here in a little bit, but I want to get to 2 guys who announced they are coming back. Jalen Milroe confirming what we all kind of expected. He's going to come back for next year, 2024. He was on with the guys on the next round Thursday morning, confirmed that he will have 2 seasons of eligibility remaining and, going to be one of the Heisman favorites next year. His first season starting with Alabama this year got better as the year went along, and they got a playoff game to go play. They got to go play number 1 Michigan in the Rose Bowl here in just a couple weeks. But again, good for Jalen Milroe. He will be one of the top returning quarterbacks in the SEC next year. Some good news over at Tennessee for Josh Heupel and his crew. Omari Thomas, big piece of their defensive front, had a career-high season this year. He revealed Thursday evening that he is coming back to the Vols for another season. He posted, 4 years ago, I made a decision to come here and be a part of the change. My time at Tennessee has been nothing short of amazing. Accomplished so much here, but I think we could take it a little bit further. With that being said, I'm returning to Tennessee for my final season. This year, he had a career-high 31 tackles. He's appeared in 47 career games for the Vols, 29 starts. A big-time piece on their D-line coming back next year. So congrats to Big O. We interviewed him at SEC Media Days. Tremendous young man, and wish him the best of luck. So congrats to Vol fans. Been a lot of bad news for the Vols here in the last couple of days. All the DBs entering the portal and all that. Needed some good news of somebody coming back for another season. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we got more transfer portal news. I mean, it's more than just one segment to fill. So we're going to get to that with you guys here in just a second. That's coming your way here in the next segment. I want to remind you guys, this episode presented to you by friends over at the Game Time app. Look, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets to all your sports, comedy, music, and theater events near you. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The all-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. And you can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. I actually used it a couple weeks ago, went to an NFL game. It was exactly what it was. The all-in price showed me what the total was. The view from the seat was exactly my view from the seat. All of it was perfect. And I encourage you guys to go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account on the Game Time app, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode also presented to you by our friends over at the Tax Act Texas Bowl. Tickets are on sale right now. It is Houston's biggest annual college event, and it is coming back to prime time at NRG Stadium Wednesday, December 27th. So less than 2 weeks away. It's the Texas A&M Aggies taking on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. You don't want to miss it out. If you're an Aggie fan that lives in the area, if you're just an SEC fan that lives in the Houston area and you want to go check out an awesome bowl event, go cheer on the SEC, or hey, maybe you want to root against the Aggies, whatever it is, go experience the passion, pageantry, and the rivalry of another exciting Big 12 versus SEC showdown to close out the college football season in Houston. You can check out TaxActTexasBowl.com right now for the best seats and suites on game day. They got all kinds of events going on, including some concerts leading up to the event. You got Braxton Keith performing. You've got Roger Krager. All of it is happening there in Houston the week of December 27th with the TaxAct Texas Bowl, the night of the 27th. Again, Aggies versus Cowboys. Going to be a fun one. TaxActTexasBowl.com for tickets. Go check it out right now. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC, and thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers checking us out each and every day. Come on back on Monday. We're going to have more transfer portal madness. We'll be getting closer to bowl games, right? At TaxAct Texas Bowl, we'll get things started off for the SEC with A&M in less than 2 weeks. So going to be a lot of fun, but plenty to discuss, man. We'll have a National Signing Day next week. They call it the early signing period. We all know it's where you're signing 95% of your class, but all right, we got to dive back into it. Can't waste any more time here because we got plenty more to discuss when it comes to transfer portal and everything else. Let's start over at Ole Miss. Jaxson Dart, undecided on what his future will be. Said he will make a decision after bowl season concludes. But look, we all expected. Lane Kiffin let the cat out of the bag a couple weeks ago, said Jaxson Dart's going to be coming back. And then this week we got tons of great news for Ole Miss fans. Senior receivers Trey Harris is coming back. Jordan Watkins is coming back. Tight end Caden Prieskorn's coming back. Dart was asked about those guys all returning, said it's huge. Those guys are going to be able to come back and make huge names for themselves. Really cool to see guys who have an opportunity to go to the NFL and do their thing, carry out their dreams. Jaxson, just tell us you're coming back. Come on. We all know what's happening. Ole Miss defense also getting a big boost. Jared Ivey announcing this week he is running it back for another season in Oxford. He transferred in from Georgia Tech a couple years ago, going to his third season playing for Lane Kiffin. He's played in all 25 games over the last 2 seasons there. And had a good year this year. 3.5 sacks, 37 tackles, 4.5 tackles for a loss. Or rather, that was his first year. This season, he had 5.5 sacks, 9.5 tackles for a loss, 41 tackles. So very productive there. And, Ole Miss got a ton coming back. They're also bringing in some guys. Key Lawrence, defensive back and veteran contributor during his time at Oklahoma. Originally started his career at Tennessee. Spent the last 3 seasons with the Oklahoma Sooners, and now he's on the move. Announced on Thursday he is going to Ole Miss. During his past season, Lawrence was one of 4 Sooners with multiple interceptions. For his career, 157 tackles, 3 picks, 13 pass breakups, 6 forced fumbles. He's the 5th transfer to commit to Lane Kiffin's team this offseason. He will join Illinois corner Tavian Nicholson, safety Lewis Moore out of Indiana. I mean, it's Ole Miss is adding some pieces, man. Pete Golding and that crew, that defense is going to get better, bringing back a ton on offense. Ole Miss is going to be a problem for a lot of teams in the SEC next year. They were this year, but might be even better next year. All right, over at South Carolina, they have picked up some commitments. On Wednesday, they got former Pittsburgh Panther DeAndre Jules. He announced his commitment to transfer to South Carolina, played 4 seasons at Pitt. This past year, big defensive lineman, 24 tackles, 7.5 tackles for a loss, and 2 sacks. He's been productive there. So big time get there on the D-line. Been preaching. Shane Beamer, got to improve the trenches. Got to get O-line and D-line help. This is some good D-line help. DeAndre Jules coming over to South Carolina. Jayden McGowan also heading there. The former Vanderbilt wide receiver has 2 seasons of experience. Announced this week he is heading to South Carolina after he visited the Gamecocks last weekend. Had some offers from Indiana and Boston College, but special teams coordinator Pete Lembo and wide receivers coach Justin Stepp part of his recruitment, and he is heading back to his home state. Jayden McGowan going to go play for Shane Beamer and South Carolina. There's one Gamecock on the move. Tight end kicker Mitch Jeter announced Thursday he is heading to Notre Dame. So good luck to Mitch Jeter, finishing off his career over there at Notre Dame. All right, over at Mississippi State, head coach Jeff Lebby dipping into the state of Texas for an offensive lineman in the transfer portal. Ethan Miner, been at multiple schools throughout his career, started out at Arkansas State, went to North Texas, played in 12 games there, and they need some help on that offensive line. They lost Stephen Losoya to the portal. He's now at Vanderbilt. So Ethan Miner, see what he is able to do on that offensive line for Mississippi State. Over to Oklahoma, they are bringing in a running back with a bunch of experience in Samuel Franklin. Played at Tennessee Martin the last several years. Counted for over 2,000 yards rushing, 20 touchdowns over 3 seasons there. So Samuel Franklin, if your SEC school is playing Oklahoma next year, maybe a name you need to keep an eye on. Oklahoma also added Purdue wide receiver Deion Burks from the portal this week as well. Over to Auburn, Marcus Harris, all-SEC defensive lineman, announced on social media he is entering the NFL draft. D-lineman led Auburn with 7 sacks this year, also had 40 total tackles, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Spent 3 seasons with Auburn after transferring in from Kansas. He's the 4th Auburn defender to declare for the 2024 NFL draft. He joins DBs DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett and safety Jalen Simpson. So look, Auburn had a good defense this year overall, and losing some key pieces of it all heading to the pros. All right, we got some guys who are heading out in the transfer portal, so we'll run through these very quickly. DeCamerion Richardson over at Mississippi State, he entered the portal after 4 seasons in Starkville, very highly thought of, and saw action of 45 games for the Bulldogs over the years. He's going to have a lot of suitors. Mississippi State now has seen 4 DBs enter the portal. DeCarlos Nicholson, safety Corey Ellington, and safety Will James all in the portal as well, but DeCamerion Richardson's going to garner a lot of attention. Former LSU tight end Jaxson McGowan, he announced this week he is transferring to Wisconsin. He just had 1 season at LSU. Texas A&M losing tight end Fernando Garza. He's hitting the portal, appeared in 15 games for the Aggies, most of them on special teams. Florida wide receiver Caleb Douglas, he is heading to Texas Tech. He entered the portal after 2 seasons at Florida, started the first 5 games of this year before he was lost due to an injury. So Caleb Douglas going to Texas Tech. Miguel Mitchell, another Florida player hitting the portal, sophomore DB, entered the portal this week. Comes 2 days after Florida named Will Harris their new secondary coach. So Miguel Mitchell on the move. Ole Miss losing wide receiver Jeremiah Dillon, 2 seasons with the Rebels. He is entering the portal. And Arkansas, they're looking for an improved offensive line this year. Joey Sua, true freshman, is the latest Hog to enter the portal. Did not play this season. He also joins Devin Manuel, the other Arkansas offensive lineman who entered the portal. Sua will have 4 years of eligibility remaining. All right, so those are guys newly heading out. How about visits? How about big names that are in the portal that are visiting places? Again, there's so many different wrinkles to the freaking transfer portal. All right, visits. Let's jump here. Alabama is set to host Texas A&M edge Fadil Diggs. He was with the Aggies for the last 4 seasons, and the Crimson Tide very interested in him. Entered the portal just a couple days ago, coming off a great season where he had 4 sacks, 2 pass deflections. He's had 75 tackles in his 4 years with the Aggies. So Fadil Diggs, could he end up in Alabama? He's going to go visit him and find out. Mississippi State's Will Rogers and Woody Marks, quarterback and running back, 4 seasons at Mississippi State. They're both in the portal. They're both going to take a trip together to Washington. Pete Thamel putting out there that the Huskies are strong favorites to land Will Rogers. And look, they already took a former Mississippi State running back out there. Dylan Johnson is playing at Washington right now. Michael Penix is going to move on to the draft. Be a great fit for Will Rogers and Woody Marks to go finish off their career over at Mississippi State, or over at Washington, rather. So we'll see if they end up doing that. Tyler Barron, the Tennessee defensive lineman, he entered the portal course days ago. On3 Sports reporting that several teams very interested in his service. Texas Georgia, Alabama, and Ole Miss, all in the SEC. So we'll see if Tyler Barron ends up at another school. Tamarian McDonald is on an official visit to Ole Miss this week as well. So, all right, there you go. You're caught up on all the visits and everything else. We've got more SEC news to get to. We're going to transition into a little bit of recruiting news here in just a second. But thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the podcast of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We'll remind you this episode presented to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Like Prize Picks, we've been telling you about, they're the largest daily fantasy sports platform in America. If you're looking to get in on action, not just waiting for the weekends, waiting for, the big games, you can do stuff all throughout the week with Prize Picks. It is a really cool app. If you haven't downloaded yet, it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling, thousands of other players, you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. They got all the football action up there. They got basketball games. You can even do combos in the specials league. They even offer that reboot policy where your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So like for football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't come back in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks, the only daily fantasy sports app with a injury insurance policy. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the number one daily fantasy sports app. Go check them out right now. prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use our code lockedoncollege. That gets you a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code lockedoncollege. It is Prize Picks, and it is daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. If you're looking for a second listen, check out our Locked On Sports Today page on YouTube, 24/7 streaming of all of our great shows, getting you caught up on all the big stories in sports with either our college shows or pro shows, NFL, MLB, all of it's up there for you, Locked On Sports Today. All right, we got plenty more to get into here. We got recruiting, of course, National Signing Day coming up here in just a couple of days. So let's get you caught up on some of the tidbits going on in the recruiting world. And we'll head over to Mizzou. Eli Drinkwitz, Kewan Lacey, impact running back prospect out of the state of Texas in the 2024 cycle. A lot of SEC schools were on his radar. Well, Thursday evening, he committed to Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz. He had offers from Alabama and Ole Miss. Becomes the highest ranked running back commit for the Tigers in the class of 2024. 6 feet tall, 205 pounds, out of Lancaster High School in Texas. 4-star recruit, the number 17 running back in the country in this cycle. Of course, Cody Schrader is moving on. They did bring in Marcus Carroll through the transfer portal just this week, but Kewan Lacey, maybe a guy that's going to play a lot as a true freshman there at Missouri next season. So big get there for Drink and his crew. Over at Ole Miss, Cedric Beavers reaffirmed his commitment to Ole Miss. Highly rated JUCO defensive back, verbally committed to Lane Kiffin back in August. This past weekend, took an official visit to Arkansas and was offered a scholarship to play for Sam Pittman, but he's shutting things down. He said, posted on Twitter, he said, "I'd like to thank God for blessing me, putting in a position I'm in. We'd also like to thank Ole Miss. With that being said, after talking to my family, I'm closing my recruitment. I'm 100% committed to the University of Mississippi." Beavers is rated a 4-star, number 4 overall JUCO prospect, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. Played in 18 games for Jones College, recording 63 tackles, including 4 interceptions over the last few seasons. So DB Cedric Beavers, another piece Pete Golding going to add to that defense there at Ole Miss. Over at Georgia, Kirby Smart picking up a 3-star quarterback out of the state of Georgia. Coulter Ginn announced he will be a preferred walk-on for the Bulldogs. Preferred walk-ons have roster spots guaranteed for them. He is 6'4", 190 pounds, rated a 3-star, number 97 quarterback, and number 175 player in the state of Georgia. There were several schools on his radar: Arkansas State, Bowling Green, Coastal Carolina, Memphis, UAB, but he wants to stay in the state of Georgia and be a preferred walk-on for the Bulldogs. So As of yesterday, Georgia had 2 scholarship quarterbacks committed in the class. Coming in, Ryan Puglisi. We know he is part of this class and staying committed. Dylan Raiola, of course, the big 5-star. There's been a lot of rumors that he is going to flip to Nebraska, but hasn't happened just yet. Over at Texas this week, they picked up a commitment from safety Kobe Black, 4-star safety, the number 3 safety in this class, the number 10 prospect out of the state of Texas. He had offers from A&M, LSU, Oklahoma State, and he is heading to Texas. If you missed his ceremony where he chose a school, I picked the Longhorns hat up at first, put it back down, picked up the A&M one, and then eventually went back to the Texas hat. So kind of scared some Longhorn faithful out there. Over in Kentucky, they lost a commitment from one of their recent pledges, Lorenzo Cowan. Been committed to Mark Stoops and the Wildcats since September. He announced Wednesday that he will be stepping back from his commitment. This came just a few days after he took an official visit out to USC in California, so may end up out there. 6'3", 220-pound edge rusher out of the state of Georgia. He is the number 69 edge rusher in this class. A few other tidbits before we call it a show. Over at Texas A&M, they are set to hire a new strength and conditioning coach, and it's going to be former LSU strength and conditioning coach Tommy Moffitt. Moffitt spent more than 20 seasons at LSU, helped that program win 3 different national championships under Nick Saban, or under 3 different head coaches. It's a slip of the tongue there. 3 different head coaches. Nick Saban, he was with, helped him win the title in 2003. So with Les Miles, helped him win the title in 2007. They got back to another one in 2011, and then was part of Ed Ogeron's staff, 2019, Joe Burrow and crew, when they won the national championship. So very highly thought of in strength and conditioning circles, I guess you would say, but he was named as Football Scoop's National Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year back in 2019 when he was there at LSU. And like I said, very highly thought of. And if anything, can he get A&M back going in the trenches, get some of those O-linemen and D-linemen a little bit more conditioned, and A&M might be cooking with fire if they can get, just a little bit stronger there. And Tommy Moffitt might be the guy to get that going. One more note here over at Alabama. Nick Saban reportedly adding a piece to his staff. It's a former assistant to Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. According to Bruce Feldman, former Michigan linebackers coach George Hilo has been hired by the Crimson Tide. Hilo is expected to start work immediately as Alabama preps to face, Michigan, where he formerly coached just back in 21-22. Does have a previous connection to Saban after serving as a defensive intern for the Tide back in 2012. But you wonder how much of that is gamesmanship. Hey, you know these guys. Why don't you come in here and join our staff and help us do a little scouting, do a little film study. Tell me what they were thinking here. By the way, Tide's still hanging as a 1.5 point underdog over that FanDuel. 1.5 point underdog to Michigan. Don't see that often. Alabama and the Crimson Tide under Nick Saban, not very often are they underdogs. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Come on back on Monday. We'll be recapping all the action. We're going to have even more transfer portal madness and recruiting stuff. We'll get you all caught up. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On's first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with our local experts. Go check them out. Locked On Sports Today. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. There's no college football. What are we going to do? We'll figure something out. Talk to you on Monday. Plenty to discuss.